according to law enforcement sources, that her body was not intact. And that it appeared that she may have been dead inside that car for an extended period of time.
Disturbing new footage of a teenager found dead in David's car has gone viral, and it's got everyone talking. What's troubling is the fact that David knew the victim, and they were more than just friends. But even though he's hiding the truth about the true nature of their relationship, shocking details are getting exposed, and it's not looking good for David. We've got the full scoop here. So, let's get right into it. The beginning of a scandal. On September 8, 2025, employees at Hollywood Tow on Bluebird Avenue made a disturbing discovery. They had received a Tesla just a few days earlier on September 3rd after it was towed from Daney Drive in the Hollywood Hills. Workers at the tow yard reported a foul, unmistakable odor emanating from the vehicle, one that grew more pungent by the day. Finally, unable to ignore it, they alerted the Los Angeles Police Department. What happened next is the kind of scene detectives dread, and one that would soon dominate international headlines. When LAPD officers pried open the Tesla's frunk, the small storage space in the front of the car, they were hit with the stench of death. Inside, wrapped in a bag, was a severely decomposed body. At first, the remains were so deteriorated that investigators couldn't even confirm the victim's gender. The only certainty was that this was no ordinary tow yard discovery. It was the start of a homicide investigation tied to one of music's rising stars, David Anthony Burke, better known as David. According to NBC News, the Tesla was indeed registered in David's name. But registration doesn't always mean recent ownership or active use. And that ambiguity immediately fueled speculation. Who had last driven the car? Why had it been left to sit for weeks in one of the city's most visible neighborhoods? And most chilling of all, how did a dead teenage girl end up inside? For days after the discovery, law enforcement remained tight-lipped. They worked alongside the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office, who struggled to immediately
A decomposed, currently unidentifiable dead body has been found in a car out in LA. And who was this car registered to? A famous singer.
But soon the pieces began to fall into place. On September 17, 2025, officials publicly identified the victim as 15-year-old Celeste Rivas, a teenager from Lake Elsinore, California, who had been reported missing since April 2024. The announcement not only confirmed suspicions, but also deepened the mystery. How did a girl who vanished nearly a year and a half earlier end up in the vehicle of one of America's hottest young music stars? The identification hinged on a few key details. Most notably, Celeste had a distinct tattoo on her right index finger reading SH. According to NBC Los Angeles, that tattoo along with jewelry she was wearing and other physical markers provided enough certainty for investigators to link the remains to her. Her mother, devastated but determined, also helped confirm her identity. According to TMZ, Celeste's mother reached out directly to media outlets after hearing about the Tesla discovery, suspecting that the victim might be her daughter. When she first vanished, police and volunteers searched extensively. But with no immediate leads, the case soon grew cold. For more than a year, her family lived in limbo, clinging to hope that she might return. It wasn't until her body surfaced in September 2025 that they had the confirmation they dreaded most. Who was Celeste Rivas? To the outside world, she was a bright, lively teenager born around 2010 who had her whole life ahead of her. Family described her as energetic, curious, and on the cusp of adolescence. But behind that innocence lay troubling signs. Shortly before her disappearance, Celeste's mother revealed that she had begun dating a boy, or perhaps a man who went by the name David. This was the same name investigators would later note as eerily aligning with David's real identity, David Anthony Burke. Though the family never met this David, the connection would become one of the central threads tying together the tragedy of her disappearance and the shocking discovery in Hollywood. The circumstances around the Tesla itself only made the case stranger. According to Rolling Stone, witnesses reported the car had been sitting in the Hollywood Hills as early as May 2025. That means it may have been abandoned for months before being towed. When workers at Hollywood Tow
Authorities were called to this tow yard. It's called Hollywood Tow. They open the front trunk and they find this body wrapped up in a bag.
The fact that the Tesla sat so long unclaimed raises crucial questions. Why didn't David or anyone connected to him retrieve the vehicle sooner? Could someone else have had access to the car? These mysteries remain central to the LAPD's ongoing investigation.
That the car may just be a secondary location, that there may have been an incident leading to.
How do they process the car? What are they looking for? Fingerprints, DNA, sequence of events? What do they do?
Because Teslas function almost like rolling computers, investigators also hope to retrieve valuable data. GPS records, door opening, logs, dashcam footage, and more. Any of it could help reconstruct who used the car in the months leading up to the grisly.
They store so much data. The car is just as much a computer as it is a vehicle. So there's going to be tons of information stored on the memory board of that car.
As soon as the news broke that a body had been discovered in David's Tesla, the story exploded online. Outlets like ABC7 and CBS raced to confirm details, while gossip sites and fan forums fueled speculation. Fans and critics alike debated whether the singer had direct involvement or whether he was being set up. Theories ranged from plausible to outrageous. Some suggested that David, who was out on tour at the time, couldn't possibly have placed the body in the car himself. Others pointed to the David connection, arguing that it was too coincidental to ignore. A vocal minority even floated conspiracy theories that the car had been deliberately used.
And not to play conspiracy theory, but there's always a possibility here, right, that perhaps that person who did this, right, wanted the body to be found. If David has nothing to do with this, there is always a possibility that the body was placed in his car.
By the time Celeste Rivas was officially identified on September 17th, what had started as a bizarre Hollywood crime story had snowballed into an international scandal. David, the 20-year-old R&B artist who rose to fame on TikTok with songs like Romantic Homicide, suddenly found his career and reputation hanging by a thread. In just a matter of days, he went from headlining shows across America to being linked with the tragic death of a teenage girl. Whether guilty or not, the court of public opinion had already begun to pass judgment, and the damage was only beginning. The allegations and investigation. When the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner confirmed that the body discovered in David's Tesla was that of 15-year-old Celeste Rivas, the public reaction shifted from shock to outrage. It was no longer just a mysterious death. It was the death of a child. And almost immediately, online investigators began piecing together a disturbing narrative that Celeste had not only known David, but had been in some form of a romantic relationship with him. From the very beginning, one detail haunted Celeste's family. In the weeks before her disappearance, Celeste had begun dating someone named David. As the New York Post reported, Celeste's mother revealed that she believed her daughter's mysterious boyfriend may have been the singer himself, whose real name is David Anthony Burke. This connection ignited speculation online. Was it possible that a world-touring, chart-climbing 20-year-old artist had been secretly involved with a 14-year-old girl? The internet quickly dug deeper. Alleged screenshots began circulating of Discord conversations between David and Celeste, dating back to 2022. At that time, Celeste would have been just 12 years old while David was 17. According to Hindustan Times, the chats were flirtatious and suggested an ongoing connection that evolved into a relationship by 2023. In other words, when Celeste was just 13 and David was 18, their interactions allegedly crossed into romantic territory. The alleged chats fueled accusations of grooming, a deliberate process where an older person builds trust and intimacy with a child to exploit them later. If these claims hold any truth, the legal implications would be devastating. In California, the age of consent is 18, meaning any sexual relationship between David and Celeste could constitute statutory rape under Penal Code Section 261.5. Adding to the suspicion, viral photos surfaced online appearing to show Celeste and David together. One image even depicted them wearing matching Hello Kitty-themed outfits. Another alleged piece of evidence pointed to a SH tattoo, the same phrase inked on both Celeste's and David's fingers. For many, this was no longer a coincidence. It looked like confirmation of a personal, possibly intimate connection between the two. The tattoo became one of the most viral and debated details in the case. According to Fox LA, Celeste's tattoo, SH etched on her right index finger, was central to identifying her body. But internet sleuths pointed out that David had a similar tattoo, which they argued tied the two together in a symbolic romantic way. Fans debated, was it possible that the tattoo was a shared mark of intimacy, a secret between them, or was the resemblance being exaggerated by desperate social media theories? Regardless, the tattoo solidified suspicion in the eyes of the public. For many, it felt like too much of a coincidence. If the alleged relationship between Celeste and David began in 2022, as the leaked Discord chats suggest, then the age gap becomes alarming. Celeste would have been 12 to 14 years old during the relationship, while David ranged from 17 to 20. While some pointed out that a 5-year age difference is less controversial in adulthood, the fact that one party was a minor under California law made this a potential criminal matter. As legal experts noted, any sexual contact during this period could bring charges of statutory rape, child enticement, or even grooming under federal law. This transformed the narrative from a tragic homicide case to something even darker. The possibility that a rising star in the music industry had exploited a child and that exploitation somehow intersected with her disappearance and death. The Los Angeles Police Department, alongside the Riverside County Sheriff's Office, have remained cautious in their public statements. As of September 18, 2025, David has not been named a suspect. Officials have emphasized that while the Tesla was registered to him, that fact alone does not prove he was directly involved in the crime. Authorities are also analyzing Celeste's digital footprint. Her Discord account reportedly went silent about 3 months before her disappearance, which some believe lines up with the last period of possible communication with David. Investigators are now combing through her phone records, online messages, and any surveillance footage connected to the Tesla to build a clearer picture. A particularly puzzling aspect remains. Why was the Tesla abandoned in the first place? The long period of time it spent missing raises important questions like, if David wasn't driving the Tesla, who was? Could someone else in his circle, a friend?
But there's always a possibility here, right, that perhaps that person who did this, right, wanted the body to be found. And whether or not there is a situation where they wanted to throw suspicion on him.
Online, however, patience for nuance has run thin. The alleged Discord chats, photos, and tattoo connections convince many that David was more than coincidentally involved. On platforms like X, hashtags like #DavidExposed and #Hashgrimmer began trending. Viral posts accused him of being both a predator and a killer. Regardless of the lack of confirmed evidence, others emphasized that even if David didn't kill Celeste, the alleged relationship itself was enough to condemn him morally, if not legally. The allegations also fractured his fan base. Some argued that the evidence was circumstantial and that he was being unfairly targeted because of his fame. Others, however, insisted that even the appearance of impropriety with a 14-year-old was unforgivable. This dual narrative, an official investigation that remains cautious, and an online conversation that has already convicted him, creates enormous tension. On one hand, law enforcement stresses due process. On the other, social media has already tied David's name irreversibly to a dead teenager. Whether or not charges are ever filed, the damage is immense. Brand deals have been dropped, concerts canceled, streaming numbers are dipping, and in the background, the family of Celeste Rivas continues to grieve a daughter whose final years may have been marked by exploitation. As the investigation drags on, one thing becomes clear. This is not just a story about a body found in a Tesla. It's about what happens when allegations of grooming, celebrity power, and the exploitation of minors collide with a homicide case. The fallout, the discovery of Celeste Rivas' body, and the Tesla registered to David has already sent shockwaves through Los Angeles, the music industry, and social media. But as the initial frenzy cools, the real questions begin. What will this mean for David's future? Will police eventually arrest him? How will his career, once soaring, survive this association with tragedy? And how does his case compare to other musicians whose names became inseparable from allegations of murder? The answers aren't simple, and they stretch far beyond the specifics of this one investigation. On the surface, it seems almost inevitable. A teenage girl's decomposed body was found in the front trunk of a Tesla, and that Tesla was registered to a rising star in music. To many, this feels like an open-end case. But the legal reality is far messier. Detectives continue to frame him as a person of interest by default simply because his name is on the registration. Forensic complications are central here. Celeste's body was so badly decomposed when found on September 8th that officials initially couldn't even confirm her gender. Without clear physical evidence, like fingerprints, DNA directly linking David or a murder weapon, prosecutors are left with circumstantial ties. And yet, those ties are troubling. Each detail in this case builds pressure not only in the public eye, but also on investigators. Still, experts caution against assuming an arrest is imminent. Without new evidence, digital forensics from the Tesla's data, toxicology reports, or authenticating online messages, police may find themselves unable to bring formal charges. For now, the LAPD is cautious. The investigation is ongoing, and in that space of uncertainty, speculation thrives. But even without handcuffs, the consequences for David's career have been immediate and brutal. Within days of the discovery, Crocs and Hollister pulled the plug on their partnerships. With him, these weren't minor side gigs. They were lucrative contracts that cemented his image as a Gen Z fashion icon. Their disappearance sent a clear message. Youth-focused brands cannot afford to associate with someone accused of involvement in the death of a 15-year-old girl. The fallout bled quickly into his touring schedule. On September 17th, just hours after Celeste's identity was revealed, David led his Seattle performance, citing personal matters. Fans who had traveled to see him were left confused, angry, and disappointed. The uncertainty now looms over his planned Los Angeles show at the Greek Theater, a concert that was supposed to be a career highlight. Instead, it may mark the end of an era. Streaming too has taken a hit. According to Pop Spoken, plays of his viral breakout track Romantic Homicide dropped 15% in a single day after the victim was identified. For an artist who built his fame on TikTok virality and Spotify playlists, decline is catastrophic. Platforms thrive on public sentiment. If the outrage continues, Curators may quietly remove him from major playlists. A near-death sentence for digital-era musicians. Industry whispers also suggest collaborations are being shelved. Artists who once eagerly courted his aesthetic now want distance. His label, Intercope, issued only a neutral statement pledging cooperation with authorities. No strong defense, no public loyalty, just silence. In the entertainment world, silence often speaks louder than support. One of the unique aspects of this case is the role of social media. In past decades, celebrities accused of crimes battled rumors and tabloid. Today, trials play out live across TikTok, Reddit, Instagram, and X. On TikTok, clips covering the case have amassed over 100 million views. Conspiracy theories run rampant that David was framed by rivals, that industry insiders planted the body, that the Tesla was chosen specifically to ensure discovery. On Reddit, forums like Rue Crime and Roptheads are buzzing. Threads dissect alleged Discord messages, timelines, and even David's lyrics for hidden meaning. This digital courtroom has already reached a verdict. For many online, David is guilty whether or not police ever say so. And in today's entertainment economy, public opinion can matter as much, if not more, than legal outcomes. This isn't the first time a musician's career has collided with death and murder allegations. To understand David's uncertain future, it's worth revisiting some of these cases. Phil Spector was one of the most important music producers of the 20th century, famous for pioneering the so-called Wall of Sound, a production style that shaped hits for the Ronettes, the Crystals, and even the Beatles. But his career took a shocking turn in 2003 when actress Lana Clarkson was found dead from a gunshot wound inside his mansion in Alhambra, California. Spector insisted it was an accident, claiming she had shot herself. Prosecutors argued otherwise, pointing to his history of pulling guns on women and his reputation for volatile behavior. After a highly publicized mistrial in 2007, a second jury convicted him of second-degree murder in 2009. He was sentenced to 19 years to life in prison. Spector died behind bars in 2021. And while his musical innovations remain influential, his name is now more synonymous with violence and murder than with genius. Varese is another music star whose career got derailed after he was charged with murder. In August 1993, the Kearneys stabbed fellow musician and Mayhem guitarist Euronymous Oystein Arth to death in Oslo. The murder was rooted in ideological conflicts, personal rivalries, and paranoia within the insular black metal community. Vernes was convicted of murder, arson, and other charges, and sentenced to 21 years in prison, the maximum under Norwegian law. Despite being released in 2009, his name remains inseparable from the killing and the church burnings that rocked Norway in the 1990s. He still releases music and writes, but for many, his artistic output will never overshadow the fact that he murdered a bandmate in cold blood. Snoop Dogg, one of the most iconic rappers of all time, also faced his own brush with murder charges early in his career. In 1993, shortly after the release of his debut album, Doggy Style, he and his bodyguard were charged with the murder of Philip DeMariam, a gang member who was shot and killed in Los Angeles. The trial became a media circus with prosecutors trying to paint Snoop as a gangster rapper whose lyrics glorified violence. For nearly 3 years, Snoop fought for his freedom. However, in 1996, he was acquitted after the defense successfully argued that the killing was self-defense. Though he walked free, the trial left a mark on his public image, cementing his reputation as both a symbol of West Coast gangster rap and a controversial figure. Unlike others on this list, Snoop managed to rebound, building one of the most enduring careers in hip-hop. But the shadow of the trial loomed large in his early years. So, when it comes to musicians being accused of murder, the outcomes vary. Some convicted, some acquitted, some dead before trial. But one pattern is clear. Careers rarely escape unscathed. For David, even if he is never charged, his name may remain forever linked to the Celeste Rivas case. For Celeste's family, this isn't about celebrity or reputation. It's about justice. They've asked for privacy, but the daughter's story has become the centerpiece of a global scandal. So, where does this leave us? David's future is teetering on a knife's edge. He is not yet under arrest. The police investigation is ongoing, but the court of public opinion has already begun sentencing him. Brands have fled. Tours are collapsing. Streaming is shrinking. And millions online debate whether he is a groomer, a killer, or a scapegoat. For David, the shadow is already here. The Tesla, the tattoo, the timeline. Each has etched his name into a story that will not be forgotten. And as investigators continue to pore over data, DNA, and digital trails, one truth remains undeniable. The tragedy of Celeste Rivas will haunt both her family and the career of the young singer, whose name is now forever tied to hers. The world waits. Will this end in charges or in silence? Either way, the damage has been done. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to watch another fascinating video like this, click on one of the boxes on your screen right now.